Are you running out of energy in the middle of a homeschool day? And you want to know what to do? Well, I'm Nicholeen Peck. I teach parenting and good communication all over the world through the lens of self-government, but I'm also a homeschooler. Yes, that's right. I've homeschooled all of my children start to finish, and I can definitely help you when it comes to more energy. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the principles and tips that I learned early on that made a difference for me. I have learned, just so you know, that if you can homeschool for 4 years, that's the number. 4 years, you can stay with it, stay focused, maintain your energy. You can do it forever. So that's it, just 4 years, that's your goal. I know that seems like, what? I can't even make it through yesterday. How could I make it through 4 years, Nicholeen? That sounds like death. No, don't focus on your own emotions and your own feelings. Don't try to think about all the problems that you've had. This journey is not about what did happen. It's about what's going to happen. If there's one thing I know as a homeschooler, it's that you have to keep focusing on where you're going, not where you've been. In fact, if you think about it, that's just sound reason for everything in life, okay? If your child does something they shouldn't do, maybe they hit someone, do you just say, you're a hitter, you're not nice, you're unkind, you're a hitter forever? Or do you just focus them on being a kind person, being loving, and treating other people with softness and gentleness? Well, of course, you focus them in the proactive direction instead of staying reactive all the time. So you've had a day that's hard. So you've had a week that's hard. Maybe it's been a whole year that's been hard. Maybe you've been pregnant. Maybe you've had to move. You've had a spouse with a job change. Maybe you've had to take on a job while you're homeschooling at the same time. I know things can happen. But there was a reason you started this homeschool journey, and you have got to remember what that is. Why did you decide to homeschool? You have to know that. Write it down. Was it because you wanted a certain type of a child? Was it because you wanted a certain type of a relationship in your family? That's why I decided to homeschool. I decided to homeschool because I wanted our family bonds and relationships to be the day-to-day everything. I wanted to learn through the family and to always have closeness in the family. And I remembered very well as a child being at school and feeling like I was close to my friends but disconnected from my family, and when I came home, not really feeling like I wanted to be close to my family. I didn't want that for my children. I wanted them to be best friends with their siblings and feel like their mom was just the coolest person ever, and she taught them everything they needed and could talk to them and would talk to them about anything. That's what I wanted, was relationships. And you know what I got? Leaders. I got leaders. I'll forever be grateful to some of the people who paved the way for me as a homeschooler. People like Charlotte Mason, Reed Benson, Oliver DeMille. So many people who've taught me, Karen Andreola. So many people who've spoken to me over the years, mentors that I've had in my life, who taught me the things that I would need to stay the course. So hopefully I can be a little bit of a mentor for you, to help you, because I've been there, done that, gone the whole way, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made to homeschool my children. So here you are, you're in the middle of the homeschool day, and you are just wiping out. You've been up with the baby or maybe a sick child in the night, but yet you still have to put in those hours of the day because you told the government somewhere on an affidavit or a piece of paper that you would put in those times for doing education. So you've got to wake up and you've got to get going. And you know if you don't wake up, it's all going to fall apart anyway. Okay, here's the thing. Life happens, okay? Life happens to a teacher at the school. Sometimes the teacher gets called out because of something in her own personal life, and guess what? The children sit in class and do dot to dots for the whole rest of the day. It happens. So we don't want those days to happen every day. But if you do have a day that happens, then decide what is number one most important. I'm going to do number one most important, and all the rest can wait, or all the rest I can hope will get learned in its own due time. In our family, we did something every day called canon. Canon was number one most important. If I did nothing else in my school day except for canon, then I knew I was going to have a successful day. So canon is basically our family's devotion time. So this was a time where we would pray together as a family, we would do scripture study, we would say our family mission statement, we would say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, we would sing a song that we were learning, we would also sing an American song right around the time that we worked on the pledge, because I believed in teaching national identity to my children. And we also would do memorizations such as inspiring poems, things about self-control, things about, loving other people, bonding to other people, things that would help us solve our problems. So we would memorize poetry as well, sometimes even memorize scripture verses. And then if time permitted, I would transition right into the time where I would start reading with the children and studying with the children. But even if I never got to reading and studying with the children because of whatever, maybe we had to suddenly drive to do something for Dad because he was stranded somewhere on the way to a job and we had to rescue him and we never got back to it, we did canon. Canon was number one most important. In fact, sometimes when we were driving somewhere because we had a whole day of appointments, we did canon in the car. We always did canon. I showed my children the most important thing in this home and in this homeschool is God, family, our national identity, and becoming people of good character. These were all things that we were measuring our whole day to. That's why I called them a canon. Just like the canon in the Bible is what you measure the whole rest of the Bible to. That's the whole point. It's a measuring stick. Decide what is going to be your number one most important, and I really hope that it's not just some little academic thing, because the character of the people that you're creating is what the world needs more than the academic prowess of the people. And the character of the people will make them leaders more than the academic excellence that they achieve in your home. However, academic excellence is possible, and I think I was able to prove that with my children. Many of them started college and college level work when they were 14, 15 years old. I allowed them to start college classes when they were 16, 17 years old so that they were a little bit more socially prepared for those classes, and usually we did them at home and then they would transition at 18 into a college or university. And so they were totally ready to transition into the world. They were academically way ahead, and it wasn't because I put tons of pressure on academics. It was because we created a culture in our home that was dedicated to bonding and learning, and that made all the difference. I've got some great principles, some tried and true tips that I can share with you, but before I do, click the subscribe button. This channel is dedicated to family unity. If there is one thing that you need as a homeschooler, it's family unity. If you don't have that, all the rest of the school falls apart. So get some little shot in the arms from time to time from this channel. Click subscribe now. One of the most important things I did to make the environment a really rich learning environment was actually focusing on my own education. So years ago, when I first started my homeschool journey, I went to my first homeschool conference, and there was a guy who was substitute keynote speaking for a person, and his name was Oliver DeMille. And Oliver DeMille talked about the difference between a conveyor belt education and a leadership education, and I was intrigued. Instantly, I bought into this concept that there were different models of education that would give you different outcomes, and I wanted a leadership education at my home. That didn't mean that I was creating the next president of the United States or CEO of a company, although how do I know? I don't know yet. But I was creating people with a leader mindset, meaning they were confident, they knew that they could make an impact in the world for good in some way, and that in every way they would lead out, even if it didn't seem super dynamic to everybody around them, meaning they were on the news. He taught me about leadership education, and then he started teaching more and more over the years, and I was listening to him talk about the different principles of creating this environment in your home where you could create leaders. One key principle was you, not them. He talked about how important it is to instill learning in a child. A parent must be constantly learning. That means that the parent must be focused on reading if their child's going to read, doing music studies if the child's going to do music studies. What inspires the child to want more out of education? It's the parent. And another one of his key principles that he shared was inspire, not require. I have to give credit where credit is due. His book is called A Thomas Jefferson Education. And there's another one called The Phases of Learning, as well as a Thomas Jefferson Education Companion, TJ Ed for Teens. These are all books that he's been part of that help create that learning environment to create leaders in your home. Another key principle of education that he taught was schedule time, not content. This was pivotal for our family. When is math time? First thing in the morning. At first, I didn't always do that. I would just have it be a certain time in the day, but I didn't give it a time slot. Well, math was first thing in the morning because my children wanted to get it over with. Nobody had their favorite as math in my family. I don't know if that's because my favorite wasn't math, but it probably has something to do with that. But we did want to make sure that they had basic math knowledge so that they could make it into college. So they had to do math, and we determined to just get it over with. So math first thing in the morning. And how much time will be spent on math. When they were little especially, we would schedule the time. We would say, okay, let's do 15 minutes of math. Or let's do 30 minutes of math. Or you've graduated up to 45 minutes of math every single day. So it didn't matter if they did one problem or 40 problems in 45 minutes of math. They were just going to do their 45 minutes of math. This meant that there was no pressure associated with math. I didn't care how fast they went through it. I didn't care if it took them 2 or 3 years to get through one math book. I said that correctly. I didn't care if it took them 2 or 3 years to get through one math book. We were going to schedule the time, and I was going to trust in the learning process. Now, this is something that can make it so that you do not get emotionally drained. When you are trying to make somebody get to the end of every lesson, to fill out every workbook page, to be at the end of the year like, oh, we did it all, check, 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 that puts pressure on you. That puts stress in your brain. That makes it so that you get worn out. Don't do it. Don't say that they have to get to the end of everything. Did you know at the school they don't get to the end of everything? The first half of every math book is almost identical to the last half of the math book that a student used the year before. So the teacher only has to get halfway through. All the rest is just icing on the cake. If your child takes 2 years to go through one math book and then you skip a whole math book, you're now ahead. Isn't that amazing? That's what I figured out for my children. And so we did skip math books a lot, and we would just take the time that was needed. So don't push so hard. Don't compare what you're doing to what you think is happening at the school. It's not happening the way you think. And I know that. My dad was a lifetime public school teacher as well as university professor, and he has told me the ins and outs of teaching. In fact, he is one of my #1 fans of homeschool. When you're worn out, one of the best things you can do is recognize the thought that is popping to your head, because usually you're stressing. You're telling yourself, I can't do this, it's taking too much time, I don't have time left. Usually it has something related to time in it. But whatever that thought is that is in your head, something like this child's so disrespectful, whatever it is that keeps processing again and again, you've got to replace that with a productive thought. Those types of thoughts that lead to stress, anxiety, overwhelm, those are the things that are wearing you out. Many people don't recognize it's their own thoughts that wear them out. It's not really the other people around them. You're going to experience things. You'll get feelings. Maybe the feeling is tiredness. Instead of thinking a thought like, I'm so tired, I can't, I'm not sure that I'll be able to do everything, when am I going to get sleep? Those are all non-productive thoughts. We should be thinking, you know what? I can use this schooling to fuel me. I can bond with my children and connect with them to fuel me. This will make the difference. Push yourself towards something optimistic instead of pessimistic in your thoughts. That is going to make a big difference in how much energy you actually have at the end of the day. Speaking of those thoughts in your head, the stresses of the day, one of the biggest stresses that a parent faces is actually disobedience from children, or children not following through, or not seeming like they care, maybe about chores. There are so many families that spend their entire school day just trying to get the children to do chores. That should not happen. If that is happening, then number one, you are tolerating way too much misbehavior and you're nagging and nagging and nagging too much. You should be correcting more and you need more consistency there. I can help with that. In fact, that's something that people come to me for all the time. But it could be that you're lacking in connection too. So sometimes we get worn out just because we're so worried about the to-do lists, all the things that have to happen. We stop actually seeing the people as people, and we stop connecting to them. I know that you are hyper-focused on these people. You are spending your whole day, your whole heart, all of your energy on the people. But it is possible to put forth that much energy and not actually look at the people and not talk to them and listen to them and see what they really need. So if you want to really give your energy a boost, read books and discuss it. Talk to the people. Play with the people. Go on field trip Friday. Do the things that you need to bond together as a group. That will fuel all the learning. And the academics, well, they'll just happen. There is a class that I think you will enjoy if you have liked this video. In fact, it will help you with the connection. The class is called The Expectation Trap versus the Cycle for Success. So click on the link to that full-length class now and get some additional help that will lead you toward increased bonding and increased energy too.